All right, welcome everyone to our panel. Are you ready for agentic observability? We've all been very busy writing all kinds of code with agents. I'm a big fan of a few of them. I'm not going to talk about which ones right now because we're here to hear our guests. So what I'm going to do is have these guys introduce themselves. We're going to get right into the conversation talking about how agentic coding, agentic tools like Claude and Gemini and Codex are changing how we work and especially how they're changing observability. So to start with, Michele, could you introduce yourself briefly?
Oh, hi, I am Michele, co-founder of Derstero, open telemetry maintainer. I have been doing observability for the last 15 years, and I've recently taken a liking to vibe coding.
Thomas?
Great. Hi, I'm Tom, co-founder and CTO of Multiplayer. Been a software developer for 25 plus years. Got my start in machine learning and robotics. A lot of passion about observability, building distributed systems, and adding AI to the mix.
All right. So we're all very excited about this. So I'm going to say what I got most excited about when I started using agentic coding, and then I want you guys to tell a little bit, and then we'll get in the observability part. So for me, it was being able to drop back into the terminal and get out of VS Code, and I could run, I mostly use Claude or Gemini CLI. I can run that. I can control Z it. I can run it in Tmux. I could switch around, go to Vim. I was back in my old stomping grounds from early in my career, and it's so exciting sometimes. Now we're getting better at this. It's like maybe the terminal's limiting, but that's what really just woke up a new kind of version of software development for me. So, to you, Thomas, what got exciting for you in the last year or so about all this?
So that's a great question. For me, it was, not having to do all the grunt work that I have to do over and over and over with every new project that I have. I know I have to write this boilerplate and this scaffolding and this, and if I could just ask for it and it shows up, and maybe I have to correct a little bit, but just that for me felt magical and it allowed me to sort of get to the more interesting things faster.
For sure. Michaela?
For me, as somebody who sits 26 hours a day in meetings, being able to let stuff work in the background and then be able to test it the way I would test the rest of my product and then be able to adjust it in between changes has a way of making me productive in the nicks of time that are left between one meeting the other. It's very helpful.
That's a huge one for me. Just I don't have to stop, put my tools down. I just let it go on cruise for a bit and just tab over and check on it. Being naughty during meetings, coding. Um, so let's get into observability. We had kind of just over the last five so years, all the talk was about kind of one observability as opposed to monitoring. And then getting to there's the tracing surge and open telemetry, and now we're through kind of the hump of like, hey, we found this really great use case for AI. What's changing in observability then? And I'll start with you, Michaela. Like, what do you see is the thing that's coming this year, and then maybe a couple of years out?
It's actually a few things. I mean, for the first time in probably 10, 15 years, the industry is poised to deliver on the promise of observability tools. They actually figure out what's wrong. But that is not actually the part that excites me. It's finally the fulfillment of a long-held promise. What excites me is that the not really the conversational paradigm, the fact that you chat with the tool, because that is usually lackluster, but the fact that you can express in a text form complex concepts in a very flexible way, that's very exciting. What I tell often my designers is that that entire dashboard could have been a telegram. So being able to have a very concise representation, what you need to know, instead of throwing all the semantic pixels and lines and numbers that we have been throwing at humans so that they would make sense, and being able to write it down in a concise way where you can get more information on demand as, for example, evidence and fact checking. That's super exciting to me.
Awesome, awesome. Thomas.
Well, I think for me, we have an opportunity to deliver on the dream of self-healing systems, where, I
It's a
mean,
big
because I
claim.
take this, so this is happening, I think. It's really happening. It's pretty exciting. And I think to be able to go from, because I use, observability for fixing bugs, because I, as a developer, I create bugs and I have to fix them. So, when you have a big distributed system, it becomes really, really hard to gather all the data in one place, trace through all the things to find out that it's this and this and this causing that weird bug that you see every once in a while. Those are the really toughest things. The little exceptions, that's kind of easy, to fix, but it's the tougher things in distributed systems that I want help with. So, what I see is, we're going in the direction where, you've got observability, you've got open standards, they're being embraced, there's more data being collected, it's being put in one place, and you can add that as context to an agent that helps you to debug. And then the next step is the PR. Maybe you're YOLOing the PR and it's going straight in your system, depending on how brave you are. Probably not. That's a future thing. But I like the dream of, I'm not even involved in the fixing of the bug that I created potentially, or, frankly, the AI might have created on their own. So it's a loop of they
I mean,
create the
like,
bugs and then
honestly, are
fix the
you writing
bugs. Yeah.
bugs anymore, or are you having the AI write them for you?
Right, exactly. I kind of do both now. I would say there are more bugs in production because of AI. That's one of the drawbacks.
Well, I'm shipping more code, and if my rate of bugs is the same, there's gonna be more
Yep,
bugs because I'm
there
shipping
you
I don't
go.
more.
know. I noticed myself, for example, that I'm working on a CLI between things, and code that looks plausible, it fails in very unexpected ways. And luckily, I still have the testing, so I test stuff within an inch of reality. But I do see that a lot of these bugs would have been prevented if I'd been writing them, because I would have thought, like, what happens if the iterator returns more than these many results? And I feel that I'm somewhat afraid that our capability of testing systems is going to be outstripped by the AI proclivity for coding bugs.
Yeah, let's explore that because that goes back to like what people like Charity Majors say about observability driven development is you don't actually know if your code works until you've seen it in production and you've looked at the metrics and validated that they're doing what they're supposed to do. So I kind of what I heard you say is testing is we've had TDD my whole career, right? Right.
Yeah.
Showed up in the late 90s, I think. Not everybody does it. Like how many people you work with actually does TDD, right?
Nobody does it.
But I
Let's
think we're in
force
this
the
age
AI
where
to do it.
Nobody agrees on what it
we
is.
have now the cost of testing is collapsing to nearly zero.
Right.
Especially unit testing, it's basically zero now, and then integration testing is getting pretty close to zero, or at
Mhm.
least way lower than it used to be. Nobody did integration testing before because it's such a huge pain in the butt to build and test. But now we're at this point where all that testing is getting cheaper, and that last mile of reliability falls to what's happening in production.
Yeah.
And so we're back to observability again, which is where I wanted to go. Um, so what do you guys see changing, like from that conversation we just had about more bugs, more code, higher velocities than we've ever seen? What needs to change in our observability stacks to make this thing keep going, to keep moving that velocity?
So I would say the data needs to change. There's not enough. I'm a developer. So when I go to my observability tool to find evidence of the thing that's happening, I'm I there's a lot of missing data. Okay, that I need as a developer. So I end up having to try to reproduce a bug in order to get the data that I want. That shouldn't happen. So I need requests, responses, headers. I need session correlated data. Right now, observability is kind of a big bucket of data, great for like overall system. But a bug is happening to a person, typical application. It happens because maybe a complex thing is I did this first, and this second, then this third, and then this weird thing happened in the system. I need it all together. Can't get that with traces. So I think we need to have better data. The data needs to evolve. And that's an important thing because for agents to work well, to actually fix a bug for you, do the work that you really want it to do, you have to provide it with good context. And if I, as a developer, don't have enough context from observability out of the box, there's no magic that will come from passing it to an agent.
Michaela, what do you think?
To some extent, that there are what Thomas said about some sources of data missing, like the reticence for distributed tracing approaches to capture responses and requests, so inputs and outputs, which is almost universal with the exception of some niches like the serverless observability industry, where you need, since you cannot put debuggers in there to be able to control the runtime, you need the data. I'm not entirely sure I agree with Thomas. So the correlation of sessions, yes, it's there is technically real user monitoring, which goes beyond just website
Tracing in
monitoring.
the client application.
Yeah,
basically, yeah.
That's effectively the holy grail of distributed tracing, is to tell you what is the impact of issues, right? And the actual impact that you should care about is what is on the end users. If your database keels over, but nobody is affected, was it really a problem, right? On the other hand, there is also too much telemetry. So the something that we see a lot is not only humans drown in a bajillion metrics that are never queried, traces that are never seen, logs that are never read, but AI does it as well. So our haystacks have become truly large, and this is a negative side effect of the real positive, empowering revolution that OpenTelemetry has brought around. I can tell you, I've been doing proprietary observability before with Aristotile. We went all in with OpenTelemetry, and we spent at Instana, we effectively were competing with other companies about who had the best telemetry. And now instead we compete of who does the best with the telemetry that everybody has. Point is, everybody having telemetry and means of collecting telemetry have become so ubiquitous that people are hoarding like smog under the mountain. And
so I kind of heard two things. Sorry. So I hear you saying, like, I agree with you, right? There is this problem of if we trace everything and we log everything and we metric everything, we get buried in data that 99% of it never gets seen by anyone, not even bots.
And I agree
but we
with you
also have what
guys
Thomas
totally
is
on
trying
that.
to
Yeah.
say, which is we at the long tail of these problems that users experience, it's really hard to get that telemetry, even if you have tracing, because it's often in parts of the code that are not often instrumented. It's a hot path or something where, or it has the problem of, like you said, where it just generates so much telemetry, we can't leave that on. So does that open opportunities though, for more intelligent ways to tap into our systems?
Well, something that I would be profoundly excited to see, and it has not happened yet, is for the creation to outstrip the creator. The AI LLM models are trained on code that people write, especially public-facing code. And there is very little bespoke telemetry in them. I would love to see, like, the moment that an application will be generated with meaningful custom instrumentation to actually capture the business context. That's going to be massive.
Yeah, and I would say that just to sort of put a finer point on what I was sort of suggesting is, I'd like to see the right data, not more data. And in fact, right now we've got a lot of noise because we've got these big switches like sampling. Okay, like I agree with you. There's too much data. Nobody looks at it, right? That's because we're keeping the wrong data. And we're missing data. So it's really two problems. So I'd like to have the right data. For when I'm debugging, I need to have requests, response, and headers for certain problems. It is a reality as a developer. Because otherwise you're guessing. What was this called with? I don't know. It was called. I don't know what it was called with. So certain cases I need that. But I don't mean collect it for everything, because most of the time you're just going to throw it away. So better data collection options than just random sampling or tail sampling or things like that. So I think the industry has to move in a direction that provides better data collection options. More that's, I'm interested in
Yeah,
these
yeah.
sessions. This user is having a problem right now. Let me look at their data. Let me turn on debug logging for my session because I'm developing something and I want to see not debugging for everybody, but debugging for me or debugging for a certain person, or this error happened. Let me escalate for their session. More control and also options about more data. Because there are, I've tried many times to use OpenTelemetry. I love OpenTelemetry, but I've tried to use OpenTelemetry traces and logs on their own with AI agents to fix bugs, and it gets lost because even I, as a developer, can't figure out exactly what the issue is, unless it's very simple. So that's how I see. That's where I'd like to see the industry going. More
I guess what you're saying is
options.
like
Yeah.
if the trace has the exception in it, I don't need an agent to tell me there's an exception right there, right?
Right.
And
That's the
or you
simplest
can have it
stuff.
read the exception and
Yeah.
chase it down for you,
Yeah.
but like
But
it's
if
not.
it's, yeah,
But you
if you
need
don't
more.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, if you don't know what it was called with, if you don't know what happened 3 or 4 clicks away, and real user monitoring is good. That's front end only. You want to see what's happening in your system. I don't know if you've ever, tried to debug an issue in a microservices architecture that's just sprawling, where you got to go deep into the system, and your user is way back over there, and what they sent to the black box of your platform, no, I don't know. Lots of other things happened,
It's 20
I would
hops
imagine.
away. Yeah.
Yeah. So unless you've got a very kind of almost trivial system where, what's sent to your black box is all you need, then you need sort of more information and also better collection options, I think.
The funny part is that distributed tracing was born actually as an on-demand debug signal. When you go and read the original Dapper tracer, the sampling levels were like epic, like 1 out of
Yeah,
10,000.
yeah.
And I hear you saying that what you would like is to be able to, on demand, for some traces, turn on the verbosity plus plus, and then, for example, collect payloads of requests and
Yeah.
responses.
Well, an
Which
agent
in
will
some
need
cases,
that. An agent will need that,
So
I
maybe
think.
like we shift back to agents for a second, right? Like for me, the thing that I get excited about most is tool use. Like I think
Yeah.
when you mentioned earlier, right? Like I think Michele, the chat thing I could take or leave for the most part for myself. But tool
Mm.
calling with that's super cool to me. And so does that start to like what opens up in your imagination in terms of like when these things are better at calling tools um to
Mm.
solve these problems we were just talking about, like opening up a remote debugger and gathering some information for you without the client ever knowing or stuff like that. What's in your imagination right now?
that's something we're actually building right now.
You're building that right
Yes,
now?
yeah. For there is observability, like the classic signals. They go a long way, but not hard enough, as we have established in this session by now. For example, being able to go and connect from an operator to a Kubernetes cluster and get on-demand information that would be expensive to collect and statistically useless all of the time, because when you're needing it, like only 0.001% of the times you have the data, then it's freaking useless. That's important context. And one of the reasons why our haystacks have been growing massive is since our collection of telemetry is preventative, so we hoard all the telemetry that we think we might need in an issue, since it is almost impossible to go and collect telemetry on demand live. Yeah, that's something that agents can definitely need. Something that sometimes also keeps me thinking is that in a future where AI actually does operate applications and complex ones, most of the telemetry collection is going to be live. So we're probably going to have just enough to do baselines, and then most of the things are going to be turned on and off because the reaction time of machines is going to be orders of magnitude better than humans, and machines are effectively always available as long as there is compute. Instead, we get stuck in meetings, and then we need something pages us to get us back.
Yeah, and I think the tool calling is probably the most exciting part of what we're experiencing now. It opens up so many possibilities. I mean, we're working on a debugging agent ourselves, and integrated with Visual Studio Code. And what I'd love to see is, issue is detected, data is provided to the agent, code is updated, run the code with debugging enabled, step through it, provide, the state of the code that you fixed back to the language model for verification. So, but beyond, unit tests or other things, actually do what a developer would do.
So the more exploratory part, right? Like
exactly.
We could write debugger scripts. They weren't
Right.
useful 20 years ago. They aren't useful now because I'm only in a debugger when something weird has happened.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is like bring the agent with tool calling in, tell me if I got this right, to go do that debugging for you, set the breakpoints, step through all those data structures, pull out the useful information, and then synthesize a summary for you.
For verification, because whatever code you want,
to go and verify what it did.
Exactly. Like this, like here is the issue. I'm changing this with the expectation that with these inputs, this path and this state of the application will exist at the end of this function that I just fixed. Okay, I could create a test that treats that code as a black box and just input output, or I could step through it and sometimes I need to do that as a developer, because just to look at this if statement that I've been staring at for 30 minutes because I don't know, my mind is just switching the things. But I'm able to like look at the state of the code, the actual state of the code, to verify that it's actually a fix. Then you have confidence that it's done and you can move on. So it's so tool calling is necessary there. But again, it's this goal of like self-healing systems. If there's a bug detected, fix, verification, repeat.
Yeah, we have a question about that. I can see Michaela has a thought, so I'm gonna let you talk, and then we'll get to the question.
For the people listening, Thomas is completely right. Don't think, however, that replaces tests. Because something that agents
no. I'm not suggesting that.
I just want for the people in the back.
Yeah, please.
Don't think that's enough.
In fact,
the reason I was thinking it is because I've talked to dudes who are like, I don't need tests. I can just open it in a debugger and just see if it's right.
Yeah, sure. I don't remember what my code does yesterday. The problem is that agents do not have collective memory. So you can check it now, and then nobody's going to remember the next time the code is touched that was supposed to keep happening.
That's a good point.
So thank you for clarifying that, because I agree with you. In fact, I think that test-driven development, I hated it. I never really worked that way, but I think I force my coding agents to work that way, and that's part of that grunt work that I love.
You still don't work that way.
Do what I tell you. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm doing TDD now because something else is doing it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I could take credit for it now. Yeah.
So we got a question from Grant. Said a few minutes back. A great point about a long-held dream of having self-healing program. Obviously, agents can write code and can also receive an error back and try to diagnose. But in my limited experience, these are still separate. Are there any examples of even a simple self-healing routine that you have used or seen in action?
Not yet, but it's coming. Okay. It's coming. Absolutely. Yeah.
I have a little thing I built that sort of does. It didn't quite do the repair, but it was basically like running a model on a GPU, and it wasn't doing the accelerated attention. And it's a black box, right? Like it's hard to debug. Yeah. And I was like, let me just go and see what the model thinks. And then it started exploring and like looking at memory sizes and memory size and CPU usage. And then there was one other dimension I can't remember right now. And then it would like infer that SDPA wasn't on. So the accelerated attention wasn't on based on those parameters. And so now it's like this little canned prompt I have. I just run it anytime I think that's happening. Cool. Like, is this happening? And it goes, nah, you're fine. Or it goes, yep, it's happening again. So it doesn't actually do that next step, which is what Grant asked about.
I think the verification step is the thing that's holding it back. Like I don't think people are ready for the PR YOLO deployment, because the verification is not quite there. There's still hallucination. There's still, needs to be better tooling around the verification
And we don't
to
test
have
our tests
confidence.
yet, is what I'm
Exactly.
hearing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because like if we have all these functional tests and great unit tests that are free now, we should, as my old therapist said, no S word, right? No should. Right? But we should be able to just let this stuff rip and let it ship
Yeah.
to
We
production.
still need a human in the loop for this.
We do.
How
Okay.
much longer? I'm not sure.
Either you want to take a
There's
guess?
also I think that's something
A
we're going
year.
to face. And by the way, we are so far off the topic of the webinar.
We're going to come back to observability.
No, one last
I think
point.
it's
One last
related.
point about testing. I already see the effects. So the same thing that observability is now infinite telemetry, and you can either have infinite telemetry or good insights. We're going to have the same about tests, because if everything is tested, who knows which ones we need to keep, right? I don't know how that is going to shake out.
Well, to shift this back into the agentic observability, we have a question from Marvin. Um, in Marvin asks, in an agentic observability model where agents consume large volumes of traces and signals, how do you decide what is data worth ingesting and retaining versus what should be sampled or dropped to manage cost? Who wants to go first?
Great question. I have strong opinions about this, but
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So I think that I think the way that the data is collected has to change. Right now, it's big bucket, throw it in the big bucket, and you'll never be able to tell what's important, what's signal and noise, because you've got these little needles in the haystack, and there's no correlation, there's no other stuff. So I think that there has to be better correlation of data. There has to be better choices about what to be saving, and that happens at the application level, and in the system itself. And not with these big switches of sample drop 50% just because I don't want to, we have to move away from that with better controls. We have opinions about that at Multiplayer. We're trying to work in that direction. There are others, Charity Majors talks about shifting left, better developer-oriented focus for observability. I think that really has to do with, data collection choices and other things, making it more developer friendly, as opposed to system level summaries and dashboards, which is where we kind of live today, where you only have the choice of sampling, and that doesn't really get you places. So I think a number of things have to change and evolve in observability for things to be better, have better choices about what to get more signal, less noise.
Michaela, we've only known each other for a little bit. I already know you have something to say, face. I can tell. So go ahead.
I find that it's not necessarily a collection problem, it's a retention problem. So we have these huge haystacks, but the problem with the haystack is only if you start piling it up. I take a rather Darwinian approach to the usefulness of telemetry. And I have TED Talks about how telemetry to sample, what works, what doesn't in OpenTelemetry, the tragedy of the commons, that it is the holy grail, the tail sampling, completely not fit in the collector architecture of OpenTelemetry. If tail sampling is a time-deferred centralized decision, the collector is a streaming distributed live component, and the two things really don't smash. But I find that it's not really the collections or the act of creating telemetry, is more which one you want to store. Every single piece of telemetry exists because somebody somewhere at some point would have been helped by the data existing. Nobody creates metrics for fun. The point is that statistically, they're not useful. They are only occasionally useful. Something that, for example, AI could do is, given the fact that telemetry is easy to be collected and that those instrumentations exist in the applications, turn on and off the dropping of telemetry very close to the application. It's not directly in the process in the closest collector, knowing that data would exist. For example, your Java application starts having spikes in response latency. We all are going to think about garbage collection unless you use the new one. Let's say we're a bit automotive, we immediately think stop the world, right? The fact that you know that you could get by turning off, like opening the dam, getting information about garbage collection, that gives you the freedom to go and investigate it on the fly. And this is something that AI would be able to do. Something else is, for example, there is telemetry that is proven to be useful is what users are being shown in dashboards they actually access. That is as close to the declaration of usefulness that a user can give you. Not only I created a dashboard for it, but I'm actually opening the dashboard, right? So I don't know if it's a matter of how we collect telemetry. I think it's more what do we do with it.
So I would say that I think what most people do is they auto instrument their applications, because of the
These days,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, so they auto instrument, and what you're talking about is when the data is received, have AI decide what to do with it, drop it, whatever. I think that's good. I agree with you, that's good. But it still requires a lot of data to be sent and ingested. Okay. So what I'm talking about in collecting options are like you have your observability agents and other stuff like that centrally connected in real time with your applications. So the app doesn't even send the data if it knows it's going to be dropped. Because one of the big problems that people have is the cost of using these tools. So you can't just send the data and then like, okay, we'll save part of it with this agent that decides, I mean, that's good, but you're going to charge for that. So what I think the best way to reduce noise, reduce costs is not send the data at all if you know that it's not going to be used. And those are kinds of controls I think we need to be, innovative about. And also things like I agree with you that tail sampling is non-starter.
No, it is a starter, just not in OpenTelemetry right now.
For OpenTelemetry or whatever. But I think that we also have to think beyond the trace. A trace is useful. It's depth into the system. But agents for them to do real work as coders. I think if we're connecting observability with actually coding and debugging and fixing, they have to have more. And what I'd love to see is a direction where we're having more controls, real-time connection with the application, and also so don't even send the data if it's not going to be used. The various escalation based on hey, the garbage collection is having some issues. Let's go around and start collecting some data without overwhelming the system, and also more context, I would say.
I see the two perspectives coming together here, right? Like Michaela is pointing out that there's a lot we can do by looking at what users actually do with the data that we've already collected, right?
Definitely.
And then you're saying that we also need to push some controls deeper into the applications so we can turn the tap on and off or get a core dump or whatever to our agent for that analysis. So that
or not send the data at all.
Really going to be necessary.
Right.
They sound complementary to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. So you can control costs, and get the right data.
I think the discussion about where the tap should be and how to control it, it doesn't actually have a general answer. For example, my answer about, hey, you have the collector running close to you, that can do the filtering for you, and then you don't have an application that changes its logic at runtime for
Yes, I think more people should do that. I really do. I don't know what you experience, whether people do that. Yeah.
What you're saying is actually the correct approach in mobile, because the end user has significant cost because of bandwidth. So it really depends on the nature of the application where the taps should be.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Cool. We have a couple of questions, so we have about 10 minutes left together. So I'm gonna try to get through some of these questions, and let's just try to make these. Yeah, we got plenty of time. Let's just go through them. All right. So not entered. That's your name now. You mentioned self-remediation, but considering the rise of vibe coding and overall use of agents to code, how does agentic code observability I think that's a mistype. How does agentic observability help these agents like Claude Code now and developers in their daily workflows? So I think this is like how are you using Claude Code in an observability workflow or similar, whatever agent you use.
Um, so at multiplayer, we have a full stack session recording and debugging agent. So we capture it's built on OpenTelemetry. So we add the missing data, the request responses and headers, correlate the data by session, provide it directly to the agent, and are able to say, fix this. Okay. So I'm using this all the time. Our customers are using this all the time. We're working on an automated piece to this so that right now you look at the session, you click fix, and it does things for you. So it takes a lot of that grunt work of trying to collect the data and the missing stuff or replaying and all that kind of stuff. So we use that all the time. The goal is to try to get it to self-healing. And again, that verification step is still a like work in progress. I don't know that anybody has a great solution. So, but the coding tools are great for that. We can say, here's a session, here's what happened, write some unit tests, right? Let's see whether it
I do that all the
works.
time, right? Like there's
Yeah,
a problem here. I can't tell it's let's just keep writing tests until it shakes out.
right. Yeah, but in that case, in order to write good tests, you have to have the good context, the data, what actually happened.
Yeah.
That's the important thing.
Cool. Do you want to take a shot at that one, Michaela, or
No,
good?
I don't.
All right, let's go to the next question.
I actually would like to take this one, the one about autonomous agents.
Yeah, go for it. You want me to read it first? I'll
Yeah,
read it first so everybody hears it.
thank you.
As autonomous agents begin to make real decisions across tools, systems, and clouds, what do you believe is the minimum observable unit regulators, security teams, and operators will need, for example, beyond logs and traces, to confidently answer who acted, under what authority, with what constraints, and why? And where do you see today's observability stacks fundamentally failing to provide that level of agent level accountability?
I do not believe that the problem is the types of telemetry we collect. I believe it's how we use the tools we're given. So logs are fantastic to describe events in time. And in OpenTelemetry, you can correlate them with traces. The problem is most of the logs are useless. So I actually had a talk at the last KubeCon where I showed that of the logs getting into their zero, less than 1% are actually error and fatal. And all the rest is probably a waste of money, especially if they're sent all the time. We had a discussion about traces and sampling. Trace and sampler are great tools. It's just that on the one hand, it's difficult to use them correctly because of limitations of the current technology. And on the other hand, the literacy about how observability works is not great in terms, it's complex stuff. Something that I used to say is that um, and this is where, for example, my view with respect to for example, charity that you mentioned is a bit different. Some people say you should shift left, so every developer should become, in some sense, an observability expert. And I look at it and I'm thinking, most developers are challenged in making their current systems work without getting more responsibility and having the cognitive burden
Of everybody else's crap. Oh, I think his
metrics
internet.
can make
Oh,
my
there you
brain
are.
ball, right? So the it's more a matter of getting better at generating telemetry that is useful. And this goes back to my initial comment where I'm hoping to see soon that AI actually gets good, not only generating application code, but the telemetry to explain what it does and what it shouldn't.
Okay.
And where
I guess what I'm curious about, and we have a couple more questions I want to get to, so we'll go a little quicker. What do we need to add to the observability stack that our current suite of the three-legged stool isn't getting us? What do you want to add on a quick answer?
do I go first?
Yeah, go for it.
There is profiling. For example, it's in the works with OpenTelemetry. Thomas has a great point about input and outputs, especially not for every single one. Reuser monitoring is a completely overseen hero. There are, of course, concerns about the cost and things, but in reality, there are solutions to that. It's just that the current industry has effectively grown very successful in exploiting people that generate too much telemetry instead of generating the correct one. So there we need probably somebody to change the rules of the game, to
Okay.
price the
Yeah,
signal and the quality rather than just how big is your haystack.
fair enough. Did you want to add anything, Thomas, before we go to the
No,
next
I
question?
think I totally
All right,
agree. Yeah.
cool. Well, Benny asks, have you seen Python generated knowledge graphs and querying recent PR release notifications? Guessing via GitHub can be about 100 in a day, successfully used to better outcomes. I think this is asking about using knowledge graphs with the agents. Have either of you experimented with that? I know there's a bunch of
Uh,
people working in that space.
Interesting. I mean, that's an interesting idea. I have not seen knowledge graphs generated from PRs in order to, I guess this would be to kind of get, to do the review itself to understand the relationships between the code and the pull request, and maybe to get to detect whether there's an issue or with what's being suggested. I mean, boy, would I like that in some of the huge PRs that I've had to review. But I guess if you're trying to pull out a knowledge graph for a PR, then you probably want to cut that PR down into bite-sized nibbles rather than like, maybe I would take a more human approach to that. But no, I haven't seen knowledge graphs being used in that way.
But since we're talking about GitHub and history, the something that has been historically pretty separate is the history of how software evolves and the infrastructure changes that
Mm,
accompany deployment of software and observability on the other side. And there
yes,
is a huge
yes, good
untapped
point.
potential in effectively marrying the versioning data you have, like service.version in OpenTelemetry, with matching code
Exactly.
changes, because that is something that agents at scale could probably infer how the changes are related.
That's a great idea of marrying the observability with the changes in the code and being able to use an agent to connect the two, because probably the bug that you're seeing today is something that was injected in code in the history in recent week or
Most of
so,
the
the
time,
different
stuff
PRs
breaks when you
most of the
change it.
time.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's an
I
important
find it
thing we'll
kind of
see.
strange how infrequently my agent will actually go look at the Git history, and I'll be like,
Yeah,
"Hey, we did that 3 days ago, bud. Go look
right.
at the Git
Undo
history," and it'll
this.
be like, "Oh, look, I discovered this problem."
This is what I said about agents missing collective memory, right?
Yeah,
For them, it's
Yeah,
always day one. It's always the new intern.
yes. Yeah.
we could be so lucky. I think we're just about at the end of our time together. I'm going to give you each. We have about 2 minutes left. Just sum up your thoughts if you'd like to, and then we'll let our audience go. We really appreciate you all coming.
Okay, great.
Go ahead,
I'll
Thomas.
let us jump for yeah. So I think this is such an exciting area. We're at the very beginning. I think it's a wonderful time to be a software developer. We're going to see not so we're starting to see how coding is changing for us. We see that happening today. We're going to see, running a system, debugging things also change greatly in the coming, months. And it's what a time to be alive, as they say.
What a time. Yeah. Michaela?
We indeed live in interesting times. There is learning that has to be had, but it's also the first time in my career where there is something entirely, utterly novel. The fact that
Wow.
now we can, instead of shoving in the faces of users all the time static dashboards, overripe with information, hoping that something catches the eye of the person, but instead having sort of, I like to use the expression like pre-mortem
And that's good timing.
fashion, because humans were excellent at ingesting what is going on and what to do about it. When I say these things that usually people ask me, do you think static dashboards are dead? The answer is no, but their usefulness is going to be curtailed to fewer use cases, because when you can rely on AI actually having a pretty good analysis and showing you, if I build you dashboards in real time that explain the situation, then the static ones are more for the kind of checking how much money you're doing,
Yeah.
or
Great.
the more static
I
kind of
totally agree with you, by the way. I
We're,
think that's
yeah,
the
I do too.
information.
But we're at
Yeah.
time.
I had
Thank
one
you
last
so
thought.
much, everyone. Thank you too for the discussion. This was really fun, and we hope to see you at the next lead dev panel. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.